Hey everyone, for today's One Piece TCG match, we're going to be looking at the two leaders Doflamingo versus Law. Doflamingo allows you, when you have 2 Dawn attached and resting 1, you can reveal 1 card from the top of your deck, and if it's a Warlord character with 4 cost or less, you can play it rested. Law's leader ability is, when you have 5 characters on the board, you can rest 2 Dawn, return a character, and play another character of 5 cost or less of the opposite color that you have returned. Today's matchup has a lot of back and forth, so you'll enjoy this one. My opponent who's playing the Law deck is going to be going first, and their objective is to get as many characters out on the field and apply as much pressure as possible early on in the game. The first thing they're going to do is play 1 cost Nami, searching the top 5 cards of their deck in order to find a Straw Hat character. They're going to choose Chopper, the 1 cost blocker. After this, they have no Dawn available, so they pass turn. Unfortunately, during my first turn, even with the mulligan, I did not get the cards required for a proper setup. After passing turn with 2 active Dawn, my opponent goes and plays a 2 cost Monkey D. Luffy as a 1 cost Jewelry Bonney. After this, they just swing with their leader Law towards my leader for 5,000. I do decide to take that damage as I need a card like Doflamingo or Perona, which will allow me to set up for my leader's ability. Unfortunately, even with the draw and taking damage, I do not find the cards I need to set up for my leader's ability, so we have to change things up. So I attack my opponent's leader for 5,000 and play a Bartholomew Kuma in order to set up a potential another play from my hand during their turn. Kuma's ability is on KO, you can play a Pacifista of 4 cost or less from your hand. My opponent decides on their turn that they're going to rest all their Dawn in order to play their 5 cost Rush Luffy. After they've played the Rush Luffy, my opponent is going to attach 2 rested Dawn to the 2 cost Luffy and attack my leader. I block with Bartholomew Kuma, and I play the 4 cost Pacifista from my hand. I do decide to go with the power over the blocker Pacifista, as this will help me out during my next turn. My opponent attacks with both their leader and Rush Luffy, and I do take only 1 damage as I'm able to successfully counter 1. So a couple of things I noticed this turn. Number 1, I still don't have any cards either way from taking damage or drawing cards in order to be able to set up for my leader's ability. Number 2, my opponent's leader is already very close to being able to use his ability in order to be able to play heavy cost characters for only 2. I target my opponent's 2 cost Luffy with a 5,000 attack from my leader. And because that attack was successful, it allows me to have some wiggle room in terms of what I'm able to do this turn. So what I do decide to do is rest 3 Dawn, and I am going to play Sentomaru for turn. This is important for 2 reasons. The first one being you get to search for a Pacifista from your deck and play it onto the field. So I can either search for the 4 cost Pacifista that has blocker or another one that has 6,000 power. The other reason is you can look to see what cards potentially may be left in your life zone. I decide to play the blocker Pacifista in order to slow this game down in order for me to use my leader's ability or play some more cards from my hand on my side of the field, or as well get my heavy hitters out that cost 7 or higher. Once that is done, I do declare my last attack with my Pacifista that is worth 6,000 right at my opponent's leader, and my opponent successfully counters the attack, which brings us to their turn. The first thing my opponent is going to do is they are going to play the 1 cost Chopper with blocker that they got during their second turn. And then they're going to activate Jewelry Bonney's ability, allowing them to look for a Warlord/Supernova card from the top 5 cards of their deck. They do decide to go with the 3 cost Rush Zoro in this case here, and they do have enough Dawn to play it straight from their hand. So the first thing they're going to do is they do rest that 3 Dawn, and they do play Zoro for the 3 cost. But the first character they do attack with Rush Luffy first towards my Pacifista. After the first attack on my Pacifista, they decide to attack my leader with their leader, and I do decide to counter that as well. I do have to be careful though, because I'm still late to this game in terms of what cards I'm playing, and when they attack with Rush Zoro, I do decide to block it with my blocker Pacifista. My opponent activates their leader Law's ability, bouncing Jewelry Bonney to their hand, playing Rush Luffy in its place, and then they attack my leader as well. Luckily, I am able to counter it for 2,000, making myself able to survive that turn without taking any damage. Because I am still unaware of what's on the top of my deck, I'm still not able to use my leader's ability successfully, so I need to make a decision whether or not I'm still going to play this a little more safe until I'm ready to make those aggressive attacks, or whether or not I'm just going to risk it. So I do decide to play it a little more safe, and I'm going to attach the 1 Dawn to Sentomaru and rest 2 to search for a Pacifista. I still decide to choose the blocker even with the 2 Rush Luffys that with 2 Dawn attached can bypass at any blockers. The reason for this is even if my opponent were to attack with other characters, I can still use that to block their attacks. So before I make a decision on what I'm going to play last during this turn, I'm going to try to clear out some of my opponent's characters. So I'm going to target the rested Zoro first, as that is a very strong character when playing the Law deck, as if you get him bounced back to your hand, they can play it very easily. So my first attack with Sentomaru does not go through, and then my opponent lets the attack go through when I attack with my leader. I attack with my Pacifista towards my opponent's Luffy, and they do decide to let the attack go through. Because of my opponent's board state, I am comfortable to play the 4-cost Boa Hancock, where you attach 1 Dawn, and if you attack or block, you get to draw a card. My opponent activates Jewelry Bonney here again, first playing them and then activating the ability, and they do decide to grab another 3-cost Zoro with Rush. They decide to rest the 3 Dawn naturally and play the 3-cost Zoro right from their hand in order to be able to attack with them right away this turn. So my opponent knows that Sentomaru is a threat, so the first thing they're going to do is attach the 2 Dawn to Luffy, making sure that they are able to bypass any blockers. With Zoro, they decide to attack Sentomaru, and I am able to counter it. My opponent targets Sentomaru once again, and after I destroy half the table by moving cards, I block with Boa Hancock, drawing a card from that as well. Then my opponent attacks my leader with Rush Luffy, and after I make the mistake of trying to block it, I do end up taking that damage, and it does work out in my favor as I get the 4-cost Jinbe. When on play, you get to take a character cost of 3 or less and put it on the bottom of your opponent's deck. This is nice because its trigger ability allows you to play it right from your life zone. The first thing that we're going to do this turn is I decide to attack my opponent's Jewelry Bonney with Jinbe for 2,000. It's important as we want to try to get rid of Jewelry Bonney so that way my opponent can't search for any more cards, but they do decide to play Paradise Waterfall, unresting the Rush Luffy as well as giving the bonus attack power to Jewelry Bonney, saving her this turn. I do decide to attack right away with Sentomaru towards Jewelry Bonney instead, and I am keeping the Dawn open for a reason. I would just like to clear up the board a little bit more before I do play the next card. I attack my opponent's leader for 5,000, hopefully being able to take out another damage in order to even up the game here before I do move on, and I am successful with that, and then I rest 9 Dawn, and I play Dracule Mihawk, and I do return the Rush Luffy to the bottom of my opponent's deck, evening out the board even a little bit more. After that, I pass turn, and then my opponent decides to rest 1 and play Capone Bege. Now, they do have 2 blockers out on the field, and this sets them up pretty well for their turn, and they do decide to play the Rush Luffy that they had in their hand from before, and attach the 2 Dawn to bypass my blockers once again. Unfortunately, we don't have enough to counteract that attack with counters, so I do have to take that, but I do have enough from Desert Spada in order to protect from that attack when my opponent attacks with their leader with 7,000. As a note, I did play another card from my hand with 1,000 counter, bringing my leader up to 8,000 in order to make that work. Now, as this side of the field's looking a little more stronger, and I have some actual attackers out, I'm going to decide to start clearing my opponent's characters out, even if it's just their blockers. So I declare an attack with Dracule Mihawk on my opponent's Rush Luffy, trying to make sure that they don't have an available attacker for next turn, and they do go with the blocker with Chopper right off the bat. I do declare an attack with a Pacifista here on Rush Luffy as I'm trying to get him off the field one last time. And I'm hoping either to get rid of Rush Luffy, a card from my opponent's hand, or Capone Bege here, because that'll either way be an advantage. And my opponent does decide to get rid of a counter from their hand to protect Rush Luffy. Instead of using Sentomaru's ability this turn, I do decide just to attack with Sentomaru, and my opponent uses Capone Bege to block that attack against their leader. And then I do attack my opponent's Rush Luffy with my leader, and I finally am able to use my leader's ability, revealing a Doflamingo, which allows me to look at the top 5 cards of my deck and rearrange them in any order. This back and forth defense game has been a long run, and it's slowly coming to a close, but it's anybody's game at this point in time. I pass the turn over to my opponent, and they're going to try to steer the reins once again. First thing my opponent's going to do is they're going to play another 1-cost Nami in order to search the top 5 cards for another Straw Hat character. And they do decide to go with the 2-cost Sanji that allows you to attach some Rested Dawn as well as remove life from your life zone in order to give additional power. After that, my opponent decides to rest 5 Dawn, playing Law from their hand, which allows them to return 1 card and play another cost 3 or lower from their hand, playing that same Sanji that they just searched for. With one of the remaining Dons left over, my opponent uses Nami to search again, finding a chopper, and then setting up their board one last time with 5 cards. My opponent swings in against my leader for 7,000, but I do play Love Beam for 4,000, which allows me to draw a card as well as protects my leader. Seeing as both our boards are full, we are maxed on, and there is very little in terms of powerhouses we have left to play. We kind of have to make the decisive play, either one of us, during either of these next couple of turns, so I'm going to do what I can. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rest 9 in order to put Law on the bottom of my opponent's deck, getting rid of one of the blockers on their side of the field. So the first thing I do is I attack his leader with my leader for 5,000, bringing him down to 1 life. I then decide to attack his leader with my Pacifista, and he does decide to take that, bringing him down to last hit. So seeing that my opponent has 1 card left in hand, and I am a little concerned that it is a 2,000 cost, I take the risk either way and I attack with my 6,000 leader towards my opponent, and they do decide to block with their character Chopper here, and then once that's done, I swing in with Dracule Mihawk for game. Once again, thank you so much everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and if you have any other ideas for decks, let me know in the comments. Thanks again.